Do you have a weekly check-in with your spouse, or does that feel like, that would just turn into a complain session? Like, no, I don't want to sign up for that. But what if I told you that this weekly exercise has brought us closer and closer over the life of our marriage? It's been such a paradigm shift for us. I'm excited to share this week because it's all about the hopes and dreams. So last week we talked about the schedule. Then the second thing we talk about are hopes and dreams. And then the third thing are frustrations and celebrations. Now, I know there's been some pushback on why would I want to sign up for something like this? My spouse would be like, no, I am not going to sit down and try to talk about our frustrations and celebrations. But here's the cool thing. This one part of the weekly check-in, the hopes and dreams, I recommend that you start off with this step. And we'll share one technique that I don't think we would have ever recognized had we not gone through it. So stay tuned to the end to see what that technique is. And again, I encourage you to at least start off your weekly check-ins with just doing the hopes and dreams. And then eventually add in the schedule, add in the frustrations and celebrations. But don't miss next week because we're going to talk and break down the whole part about the frustrations, and hopefully it won't seem as intimidating. We do have a blog in the description below where you can go through the actual steps of the whole weekly check-in, but stay tuned and listen to the hopes and dreams. I want to give a special mention to Riaz Meghi. Thank you so much for subscribing to our channel. Riaz teaches you how to become a captivating speaker on every stage. If you want to be featured next time, subscribe, leave a thoughtful comment below with the hashtag #IamForYou, Intentional Marriages for You. Hi, welcome to our weekly webinar. My name is Danielle West, and this is my husband, Russ.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Last week, as you remember, we talked about the schedule. This week, we're going to talk about our hopes and dreams. And then next week, we'll talk about our frustrations and celebrations, which is a great topic. So make sure to join us again next week. And then at the last week of the month, we'll do a recap or a summary of the three, and then we'll do a question and answer session.
One of my favorite parts about the weekly check-in is the hopes and dreams. Several years ago on a Saturday morning, Russ had just finished reading a book called The Dream Manager. The book is all about helping make other people's dreams come true. And so I didn't know what was in store for this conversation, but Russ said, okay, when you're finished with breakfast, I want you to tell me what all your hopes and dreams are. And I thought, wow, that was a pretty big question. So I had to think for a little bit, and I came up with, I think, a list of 10 things. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, okay, that's it for the exercise. And then he said, rank them. Rank them. They were all great dreams. Like, how do I put them in order? But eventually I did put them in order, and the top one actually over a new house or a car or a vacation actually was him coming to CrossFit with me. And the neat part is he did for a little bit. It didn't really work out, but it did work out for a little bit. But it meant so much to me that he actually wanted to know my dreams. And even more importantly, he wanted them to come true for me. I wouldn't want him to be part of one of my hopes and dreams if it makes him miserable. And CrossFit made him miserable, whereas I'm addicted and love it. Just the fact that he tried was enough for me on that.
Yeah, and so the weekly check-in, when we do the weekly check-in, a lot of people think it's crazy to do hopes and review your hopes and dreams every week because you feel like they don't change much over time. But what we found is while some do not change much over time, many do. I mean, it might be as simple as, honey, I want to lose, 3 pounds this week, or I want to try a new restaurant. So it doesn't have to be the big mega hope and dream. It can be a small hope and dream. And so the key to this is that you understand what's important to your spouse. And when our spouse feels that we care what's important to them on a weekly basis, it draws us to each other, draws us to them. So we found that it's a really important thing, even though some dreams are the same each week, but we found that some change over time. The other neat principle that we learned in the book, The Dream Manager, is pretend that you're trying to execute the dream, a certain dream, even though you may not be financially able to do it. So don't wait until you can financially chase your dream. Go ahead and research it now like you could afford it. Right. And you'll find out it may or may not be the dream you really were hoping for.
And this is the part that really surprised me because we had a dream about moving to a certain neighborhood. So Russ said, okay, we're not ready to move, but why don't you go ahead as if we're going to and research that part of town and see where we would live. And all it took was one drive through that town I came back home and I said, I can't move out of the town that we're currently living in. And I had no idea. I really, truly thought we would eventually move over to that part of town. Until I executed that part of the dream, I would have never known. And the neat part is I didn't spend the next several years like, okay, when we move to that part of town, it just was scratched off the list. Yeah. So that was a neat part of discussing the hopes and dreams and then executing on them without the finances involved.
Yeah, a similar one for me is I had always had a dream of owning a beach condo.
Yeah.
And, just thought about that all the time, what it would be like to have a beach condo. And so once we learned this principle, we said, okay, we're going to research it like we're going to get a beach condo, even though we weren't ready financially. And so we went through all the analysis, where we would, did a bunch of research of different places at the beach, how much things would cost, what the financial models would look like if we rented one out, if we didn't. And so what the tax benefits would be. We talked to other people who had beach condos, where we were, but they had a beach condo also and what that was like. And after doing all the research, I told Danielle, I don't want a beach condo anymore.
I was so shocked. I was really shocked by the analysis of it.
And like you said, I ended up not having to waste years of this false hope and dream.
Yeah.
So that's been an incredible principle. If you have this big hope and dream that you're constantly thinking about, go ahead and do the research and analyze it like you're actually going to do it. And you may find out, wow, this is what I really want to do, but then you'll know what it's actually going to take to do it after you run the analysis and do the research. Or you might find out like us in these two scenarios, we ended up they weren't really our hope and dream. So it's been a neat process.
And another thing that helped me, when you have these big hopes and dreams, it kind of feels defeating to keep talking about them and they don't, seem to happen. Well, one of the best words Russ would use with me is if I talked about this big dream and it seemed like it was so many years away, instead of saying, oh, I don't think that's going to work out or that's just way too expensive, he wouldn't say yes or no, but the one word he used with me was, eventually, honey. And that, I think it just keeps hope in the conversation. And to our surprise, sometimes some of the things have happened. Mm-hmm. So I love the word eventually.
Because she would come to me and say, you think we could do this at some point? And my initial thought would be, there's no way we'll ever be able to do that. But instead of saying that, I would say, yeah, eventually. And like she said, sometimes it actually came true and we were able to do it eventually, even though I didn't think we would. And other times we didn't. But, it keeps me from being Mr. Buzzkill.
And the other thing we've learned is that when couples start to experiment with this, is that they realize they were on two parallel paths. Like they had discussed their hopes and dreams when they were engaged and newly married. And then we just kind of think that those are it. Those are the dreams that we're going for.
Yeah, that's another great point. We've learned that we kind of subconsciously think that our spouse has the same dreams that we do. Mm-hmm. I have a friend recently that ran into this. For years, he had what he thought would happen when he retired. And his wife had a complete exact opposite hope and dream. But they just never talked about it. They kind of just thought that the other person's subconscious would be aligned to what they wanted to do when they retired or when they became an empty nester.
Yeah.
So this keeps that kind of, what, you don't want the same thing I want? So
you don't want to go snow skiing?
Exactly. Or get the RV and drive around the country for?
No.
So it helps a lot. And like I said, it doesn't have to be the big things. It can be the small things.
Yeah.
So give it a try. I think you'll like it and it'll draw you to each other.
Don't miss out on next week when we talk about frustrations and celebrations. It's one of the key parts of this conversation in our weekly talk.
And probably had one of the biggest impacts on our marriage next week. So don't miss it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.